we were dragged off the counters and out of that door and were taken to jail.
I think what we did was symbolic of our desire to speak out against a system of racial oppression and Jim Crow. We didn't envision this. We didn't design for this, but we're very happy to see it.
A moment this trio could not have imagined back in 1961.
So, no, never thought it was going to happen.
Having a meal at the counter of what was once the old McCrory's variety store.
My mother and father and all of them would come in here to shop, but they couldn't eat. So that was the problem.
You could get the popcorn from the machine in the middle of the store, but if you wanted to come over and get a Coke or a sandwich, you couldn't do it.
Made possible because of what they did.
I'm just a citizen who did something that he felt was right.
They were just teens back in '61 when they sat down for history. Willie McLeod, Clarence Graham, and David Williamson, along with 7 others, became the first protesters who would not allow themselves to get bailed out of jail.
At that age, 17 years old, and never been in jail, never been in trouble, that was a frightening thing.
In the past, protesters as part of civil disobedience would get arrested and then bailed out. But for the first time, these protesters would serve their time, in this case, 30 days.
We were concerned that overnight one of us might not be there, so that was scary.
What they did became a blueprint for the civil rights movement.
Did you know that this was going to be as important a moment in the civil rights movement?
No, I didn't. We had no idea.
Now they share their story with teens everywhere.
It's important that we go out and tell the story. That's what we've been doing. They need to know.
In Rock Hill, Richard Devane, News Channel 36.
I wasn't that afraid, but I was afraid.
He is 73 now and struggles with his speech, but James Wells has no trouble recalling that January in 1961 when he and 8 other students sat down at the counter at McCrory's Five and Dime. That nonviolent sit-in at the segregated lunch counter is portrayed in this children's book that shows the police moving in to arrest Wells and the others.
We knew we'd probably go to jail, but we do the time.
You knew you were going to jail.
I knew we'd probably go.
McCrory's is now a restaurant, but the original counter is still there, along with the same 9 stools where the group sat. It is right next to the old Woolworth building that's also been a focal point in the long civil rights struggle. And it's Woolworths that will now be torn down to make way for retail shops and an apartment building.
I think it reminds us of how far we've come.
Kimberly Johnson wrote that children's book about the Friendship Nine. Today, she stood across from the Woolworth building, her eyes locked on it as if it was dying in front of her.
The way it's bittersweet to see it leave because McCrory's was very important to the movement, especially for the Friendship Nine, and then Woolworths is important for other facets of the civil rights movement.
The Friendship Nine were the first to choose to stay locked up for 30 days of hard labor instead of accepting offers from others to pay their bail. It was a move protesters adopted across the country.
To get emphasis on what we were trying to do, not only in Rock Hill, but in South Carolina, period.
The plan is once the building is torn down, there will be a walkway here with murals depicting highlights from the civil rights movement.
There's a lot of memories there that some people want to forget, but again, it helps us remind us of where we can go, our futures.
In Rock Hill, Brad Berkey, NBC Charlotte.
History is filled with stories about righting wrongs, and in Rock Hill,
you have to work hard.
Nobody knows that better than Dub Massey. A member of the Friendship Nine, Massey dared to sit at a Main Street segregated lunch counter back in 1961. He was arrested.
The Five and Dime actually had to shut down because of us.
Instead of paying a fine, the Nine chose 30 days in jail and led the jail no bail civil rights strategy.
Certainly anything that's a wrong law can be changed. And that was our purpose, to change the laws, because there's no way that people should be treated differently because of the color of their skin.
That is Massey's Martin Luther King Day message to dozens of school kids. Fight for what you believe in, stand up for it, and watch the results. The location of Massey's sit-in now has a counter stool bearing his name as an honor. A wrong made right by a movement. Lessons from the 1960s still relevant in 2015. At home, at school, in the community, and to young boys and girls learning from an old pro.
You have to stand up for what's right, and you have to know that what you believe is what you believe, then that's you.
I learned that not always you don't have to give up
for challenges that I may face later on.
Tony Burback, NBC Charlotte.
To say it's been a long time coming is an understatement.
Well, it's not really a situation where we could do anything about it. And it really placed my thoughts in a relaxed mode. Here we are, teenagers, and we did a crime. Doesn't make sense.
The Friendship Nine were arrested in January 1961 for refusing to leave a Rock Hill lunch counter. It's been 54 years since they were arrested and convicted. Wednesday, their convictions will be overturned.
I feel different now than I did then, when I really needed to have a clean record, coming back from Vietnam in the 60s. And being a black American and a Vietnam veteran, too, that's a double whammy.
And while the convictions will be overturned, it's not a pardon. It's not an expunging of their records either, which is what the men wanted, to make sure their story is told and history is not erased.
We need history, not only for ourselves, but we need it for our future.
In other words, moving forward, but not forgetting the past. I'm Anjanette Flowers, NBC Charlotte.
They are mostly in their 70s now, and they listened as their original sentences were read aloud once more by the court clerk.
Offense, trespassing, disposition, guilty, sentence $100 or 30 days. Conditions, sent to chain gang.
All 9 had chosen the chain gang rather than getting out on bail after their convictions for sitting in at the whites-only counter at McCrory's. Their attorney today was Ernest Finney, Jr. He's a former chief judge of the South Carolina Supreme Court, and he was their original attorney in court 54 years ago.
These courageous and determined South Carolinians have shown by their conduct and their faith the relief that they seek should be granted.
Solicitor Kevin Brackett urged the judge to accept the motion to vacate the convictions, and then he turned to the 9 men.
So allow me to take this opportunity to extend to each of you my heartfelt apologies for what happened to you in 1961.
There was loud applause when the judge did vacate the convictions, and later Clarence Graham explained why he and the others did what they did.
We were simply 10 students who was tired of the status quo, tired of being treated like second-class citizens.
Among those who came to be a part of history was the daughter of Martin Luther King, Jr.
This is so extraordinary that sometimes you're lost for words.
So allow me to take this opportunity to extend to each of you my heartfelt apologies for what happened to you in 1961. It was wrong.
Solicitor Kevin Brackett not only apologized to the 9 men who are now mostly in their 70s, but also asked that their convictions from 54 years ago be vacated.
I am now signing the order.
When it was finally done, these heroes of the civil rights movement no longer had a criminal conviction.
We're old as dirt now, all of us, and to see all of this come to fruition, it's just great.
Kevin Brackett said he'd been approached before about offering the 9 a pardon, but he had resisted, all the time looking for another way to right a wrong.
From a legal standpoint, a pardon implies forgiveness.
And he said these men did not need to be forgiven.
These men did nothing wrong. So for them to go to the pardon board and say, I need forgiveness, struck me as adding insult to injuries.
Kimberly Johnson, who wrote a book on the Friendship Nine and who had pushed to clear their names, was overwhelmed.
You don't get do-overs, but today we got a do-over, and I am so grateful to be right here, right now.
The legacy for 9 black teenagers started right here in Rock Hill at the Five and Dime, but really their impact continued on for decades.
We need to do this. We got to get better. That's what we're going to miss.
David Williamson Jr., one of the Friendship Nine, couldn't believe the news Friday that his close friend Clarence Graham at 73 had passed away.
I wanted to, hear it from somebody else too.
As we sat and talked on David's porch, he went back to that day etched in history.
I floated all the way back to Friendship to the campus. And
Williamson said that was a story Clarence,
he loved to tell the story.
Graham, an American civil rights hero, died at his Rock Hill home, according to his mother. He's known for leading the Friendship Nine, the group that spent 30 days behind bars in 1961 after being convicted of trespassing. They sat down at an all-white lunch counter in Rock Hill.
Generations that will follow will never have a chance to know him and know what he did.
Just last year, the Friendship Nine had their convictions overturned. That was one of the last times we spoke to Mr. Graham.
When I really needed to have a clean record, coming back from Vietnam in the 60s.
Clarence was at the forefront of the American civil rights movement. He was a pioneer. That's why David says this loss will tug on the heartstrings of so many across the country.
You look around, you'll see an empty spot. So he definitely will be missed by a lot of people.
We did stop by Mr. Graham's home tonight and spoke with his mother, Inez, who is 92 years old. As you can imagine, it was extremely emotional, but she did say she is very proud of all that her son has accomplished. That's the latest from Rock Hill. Xavier Walton, NBC, Charlotte.
When David Williamson Jr. sits down at this counter,
And it was slick.
the memories of 1961 start coming back.
That's a long time ago.
Amid bustling downtown Rock Hill, Chef Rob Masson opened Counter in December 2020. The restaurant concept formed around this lunch counter. Its past, coffee stains, and imperfections on display.
It's been here, but it's never been displayed, and it's never been the focal point. Lord, we named the restaurant Counter.
The original pink Formica countertop, an homage to the place the Friendship Nine staged a sit-in at the segregated lunch counter at McCrory's Five and Dime in 1961.
At the time, the lunch counter was the biggest thing, public, that where, automatic, you weren't allowed there. But if you went there, you could draw attention to all these other problems that we had.
The group, mostly made up of students at Friendship College, was arrested, refusing to bail out of jail, instead serving 30 days hard labor to draw attention to the cause of integration.
It really wasn't about the eating part. It was more about the change that need to be made.
I got a freezer full of fish if you want to have fish fry. Let me show you some of them.
Masson met with Williamson during the demo phase of construction, realizing the significance of keeping the original pieces.
He was just rubbing it, and he would talk to me, and he would look down. He was just rubbing his hand like this, and at that point I knew that we just really had to showcase this counter because I saw the emotion in his face. I think it was subconscious.
Now, one of the original seats from the place that refused to serve Williamson bears his name. The restaurant offering an interactive dining experience at the counter for anyone who sits there, along with the site of history.
If you don't know your history is going to repeat itself.
I've witnessed multiple grown men just in tears about what happened here and where they're sitting and how they just become really, entangled in it. And that's beautiful to watch.
The memories and names of the Friendship Nine are etched into the walls of the restaurant.
We just want people to know that this is a place for everybody.
Counter welcoming everyone to take a seat. In Rock Hill, Kendall Morris, WCNC Charlotte.
Chuck Howard